the jewelry, it's the sunglasses, it's the handbag,
Hello and welcome back. I am so excited for today's video because we are talking about all things interior design. Have you ever thought, how much does it cost to actually hire a designer? Is it in my budget? Is it worth it? Well, today I'm going to be answering those questions, but with the help from my dear friend and interior design extraordinaire, Sam. We're going to have more of a podcast setup where I'm going to be asking her questions and she's going to be providing answers from the design perspective. And then I will be sharing my experience from the client perspective. And this is all with the hopes that you're going to have all the information you need before hiring an interior designer. We are going to be talking about it all, between the process, the services that they offer, the budget. I know that is a hot topic. Kick back, relax, and enjoy this YouTube/podcast with my dear friend Sam. My name is Aida De La Fuente, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hi, and welcome to another episode here on my YouTube channel. Today is a little bit different. It's going to be a podcast setup because I have my dear friend and interior designer extraordinaire, Sam Loxton, here with me. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Well, I thought it would be perfect to have Sam on today's episode because when you're thinking about hiring an interior designer, most of the time you're just getting one perspective, whether it's someone who's experienced it as a client or an interior designer is giving you their tidbits. So I thought, why not blend the two together and create one informative video for everybody? Where to start? So Sam and I actually got set up by a mutual friend. Kim, if you're watching, thank you so much for setting us up. Because my husband and I were moving to Charlotte, and our home in Tampa where we were living had furniture in it that just didn't scale the house. So we were going to have to invest in a lot of furniture. We knew we were going to be in this house for a while, and I was so scared to furnish the home myself. So then that's when I got the idea of hiring an interior designer. But I wasn't really sure all of the services and projects that an interior designer covers, which is where Sam comes in. And I think something helpful would be to know the different kinds of projects that you do and the different services that an interior designer can provide a client.
Yeah.
If they're needing one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, I can't really speak for other designers, but for myself, I provide all sort of a whole wide range of services, right from new construction. So if someone's building a new home, new build, I can help them right from the beginning. So right when they're meeting with the architect and coming up with the plans of the house, through to completing the house. And in the middle stages of that would be helping them through the selections. So I kind of act as the liaison in that respect between the builder and the homeowner, making sure that all the selections are in order. And when I say selections, it's literally anything that goes into a house. So through from, kitchen cabinets, tile, countertops, lighting, all the things that you see, and then all the things that maybe you don't necessarily notice walking through a house, like the door handles, like what color are they, what's the shape, the profile of the windowsill. So
every nook and cranny,
every tiny little thing that goes into a house, I help clients decide on and sort of help them through that process. And I will say that's a daunting thing for a lot of people. If you haven't done it before, it's a lot of detail. So I'm sort of there to handhold through that process. And then I have clients like yourself that buy a new house or have a room or a couple of rooms in a house, and they just need furnishings, so furniture in the house. And yeah, sort of ranges between those two. And maybe some people just want some finishing touches or need help pulling room together.
Okay,
I do the whole shebang.
A good variety,
range.
and I think that's important to note because I think when you first think about meeting an interior designer, you want to understand the services. But then I think a really important tidbit, especially from a client perspective, is finding the right interior designer for you. You know, that's like having the right professor in college, or making sure you have the right person to do your hair. You always want to have that person that you connect with. And what advice, Sam, would you have for someone who is trying to find the right interior designer? Maybe it's some questions that they could ask the interior designer, something that they can look for. What could help?
I think there's a little bit of homework that can be done prior to even talking to a designer, and that would be looking at their social media or checking out their website and seeing if their past projects kind of speak to you, if there's elements of those that you like. If it's way off your style, like probably don't speak to them, you know. But once you sort of establish, oh, I like the look of what they're doing, give them a call, set up an initial consultation and meet them. Like, I think you'll get a good feel for the person. It's like hiring anyone, really. Like you said, like a hairdresser, you need to feel good and confident about this person that you're about to work with. So see if you've got a vibe.
Yeah,
that would be an important thing to start with.
And I can tell you, the minute Sam and I talked, it wasn't just her British accent alone, but it was a wonderful vibe. And that's how I knew that it was going to be a very good match. But I think the number one thing that everyone's concerned about when they hear about interior designer, it's the budget. And really understanding, can I afford an interior designer? And you know, I think about being realistic with it. You know, I think my question to you is understanding how, from a designer's perspective and even the client perspective, how to have those conversations. Because when I think about being realistic, I think about house hunters, like on HGTV, when you have those folks that come in and say they want a 5-bedroom home with 4 baths, a pool. They live in like the most expensive neighborhood, but their budget is $250,000 for a home. You know, that is unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so I know, you know, Brian and I had a budget for what we wanted to do, but you know, sometimes it may not be realistic. So how do you kind of navigate those conversations, or what's something that the client can do, you know, ahead of time, or just be open, make sure that they're open?
Yeah, in terms of navigation, I mean, I think just being super open. You guys had come to me and, you know, you had a rough number in mind and we kind of talked about it from there, but be really open about it. And a lot of the time, actually, clients come to me and they have no idea what it's going to cost. And why should they if they haven't done it before?
Yeah.
They wouldn't know. So what I like to do with my clients, we'll sort of talk through your wants and needs, like we did with you. I'll make a whole list and I'll put together a scope of work. And against that, I'll then put a cost. This is for my services. And then on top of that, I will also put together, I'll literally list out every piece of furniture that we have talked about that you need in your room. So for example, your bedroom, you'll need a bed. For your bedroom in particular, we've got 2 chairs, we've got 2 nightstands, and we've got some artwork. I'll list all of those out and put a price against them. And I'll use an average cost based on past projects. We've sort of spoken about this, but of course I can come down on the budget. Instead of spending $500 on a nightstand, sure, we can go to IKEA and buy a $20 nightstand, but is that really what you're looking for? And, you know, we've probably at that point established the quality that you're looking for and the look and, you know, those sorts of things. But yeah, so I'll line item out each room and how much the furniture should cost, just to at least give people sort of a forecast for how much they should be expecting to spend per room. And we can chat about that. I mean, it should be open at that point, like, oh, I'm not really wanting to spend that much on that room. Is there any way you can see if we can come down? Yeah,
and I think an outline, like an itemized thing like what you did, was really helpful to your point. Like, maybe we do want to spend more money on a specific piece of furniture versus another in order to come down. And so I thought that was something that was really, really helpful. So, you know, what it sounds like too is that the client has to be, and what I've learned, be willing to have those open conversations about cost.
Certainly helpful, yeah.
Have full transparency and make sure, this goes back to finding the right interior designer, that the interior designer is also transparent on what they're being charged for, and being okay having that conversation, really working with the client and their realistic needs.
Realistic
For
being the
the
key word.
yes, for the most part. So to recap right now, we figured out the services an interior designer provides. We know how to find the right one for you, and we've understood the budget. And so, you've hired your interior designer. Now comes the fun part, and that's the process, right? Understanding the process of interior designer. And it is safe to say that Brian and I absolutely loved the process. And honestly, I would say Brian loved it the most. He was like a little kid on Christmas when you came.
I love that though. I love when clients get excited about it. It makes it more enjoyable for me too.
Yeah, and for those who haven't worked with an interior designer, the process that we're referring to is actually when we hired Sam, we needed help in our foyer area, our living, and our dining room area. And so she went back, worked on the designs, and then she actually came back to our house, had a whole mood board set up, and had the designs and different options of designs on a PowerPoint deck that we actually connected to the TV to make it, a whole spectacle. We loved it. And so she walked us through the different designs that she did. So you walk us through that. We make our selection of what we agreed to do. And then you go back. We make sure we order everything, sign off, wait for the furniture to come in, and then have an install date. Is that the standard process for every interior designer? Or is that just how you typically do with your clients?
That's what I do with my clients, and it is sort of a copy and paste situation, and that's the process I like to follow with all of my clients. Obviously, if it's a smaller project, we'll be presenting a smaller amount of rooms, but if it's a bigger project, it's still the same process, is what I'm getting at. But for other designers, I'm not sure how their process works, but that's kind of what I've found works well for me and my clients.
Well, and I love that you made it so personal, and in the selection process when Sam showed us the designs. And I think another thing to look for, when you're trying to find the right interior designer, she had the textures, like if we were going to get a rug, she had it ready, she had a mood board, but then the personal touches that you put into the designs. For an example, in our living room, she got access to our wedding photos and even blew up a picture of Madrid and added that to the design. We came to you and said, hey, we have these table settings from our wedding, which were like watercolor, like large index cards with different monumental places within Madrid. You're like, hey, we don't know what to do with these. If you could please incorporate them in the design somehow, that would be great. If not, don't worry about it. Well, she came back with the design, and you'll see in our foyer, you did an amazing job hanging those up, and it is such a talking point when people walk in, but makes the space feel so personal. You did an excellent job, and I think those personal touches really, make you stand out as an interior designer. But I think from a client perspective, coming prepared and knowing what personal touches I think you want to include in a space is really important.
Yeah, and kind of on that note, the approach that I take, and I'm sure a lot of other designers do too, I always have to tell myself, and it's just really important to me that this isn't my house. Also, I want you to feel like you're at home in this house as well. So I think it's those little personal touches that make your home yours and my home mine. That's what makes you feel like you're at home. So it's important to have those.
Well, and I think going back to an earlier question when we were talking about things to ask your interior designer, especially in the preparation process and planning, kind of as a client doing your own homework, I really wanted to express to you how I wanted the space to feel, because I am not a visionary. I didn't have a vision for what the space was going to be. I had maybe a vibe, which sounds very millennial.
You're not giving yourself enough credit. You were an A plus client for doing your prior research. Aida had her Pinterest board ready. She had a description of, you know, how she wanted it to feel, and she did like a one word, like, this is my one word that I want to try and incorporate into the design, you know.
And I went
And
on TikTok to discover that. I
oh, I
did want
didn't know
to
that.
have a word, so it helps with the guidance for when you are
Absolutely.
designing as well,
Yeah,
right?
the more the client can give up front, and it doesn't just have to be what you do like, it can be like, and by the way, I don't love this and I don't love that. Let's try and like check all the things that you love and all the things that you don't like. Having that list for me going forward, or just to even get started, is really, really helpful. So the more info you can give up front, and the try and be as open and honest with your designer. For me,
Okay.
you're not going
That's
to hurt my
another
feelings.
great tidbit,
Yeah,
I
you're
think.
not. They shouldn't get hurt. Their feelings hurt. It's not their house. It's going to be your house. In my case, my feelings will never be hurt. If I think it's a total disaster and you're you know, heading down a path that you shouldn't, I'll say, look, I really advise you go this route rather than this route. But at the end of the day, it's the client's home, and it's up to them what they like
Yeah.
and dislike.
And I think it's very welcoming, and really helps with the communication. It that sparked a memory. Even this couch that we're sitting on, one of the options that Sam presented us was like this really funky, kind of different couch. He knew we wanted a couple kind of different pieces.
It was
Um,
almost sort of had like a Moroccan vibe to it,
yes,
because you had just been to Morocco, and the whole travel aspect,
yes,
just to put
and
some reasoning behind the selection.
conceptually, like on the design, it was wonderful, and it was so funny. We were so apologetic, and Sam kept on saying, no, this is your space. If
Yeah.
you don't like something, tell me. And I think that's a really important tip, is to have that open communication and be honest,
Hmm.
on both sides. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
is critical, or else you're going to end up with, I think, a design or a space that you don't entirely love.
Yeah, which is not helpful for the designer or the client. So I think, yeah, open and honest communication is key.
Yeah. And to add to that, I remember as part of, the process, we have the install date. So Sam waits till the furniture comes in and then sets up a date where we leave the house. We felt like we were on a TV show. We leave the house for eight
Move that
hours.
bus.
Yeah. And so we came back, and actually Sam caught our reactions when we first saw this space, and we were, as you will see, shocked, and it's so crazy because we were part of the process the whole time, right?
Yeah, and people are like, wow, I'm like, you chose this stuff,
Yeah.
you approved it, you knew what was going in here. But I don't know, when you feel it, maybe it's just a different
Yeah, I think
feeling.
it is that feeling.
Mm.
And honestly, I think at that moment is when you realize the investment was worth it.
And for me on the design side, by the way, it's also like, oh, my hard work has paid off, you
yes,
know?
because you work so hard in
Yeah.
like bringing everything in. And so, I always think about girl math. We've talked about this. It's like, okay, the amount of compliments that we've received on our home, or how we feel walking into our home, that paid for this space,
Yeah,
because we
price per
knew,
compliment.
yes, price per compliment. So I think that's really important. And one last question I think would be really fun to ask, and to get both of our perspectives, is, someone has a specific budget and they can only maybe redo a room in their house, or it's a specific service that you offer, which one would we pick? And mine would definitely be the finishing touches. And so, Sam, could you explain a little bit about what the finishing touches like is, and that service go like adding into the accessories, and why it's important?
Yeah, so I mean, in your case, in a lot of the projects, when you're purchasing furniture, when I do my proposals, it's all the big stuff that's on there. So, your couch, your ottoman, but you guys can kind of see what we've got here. It didn't include initially, the pillow and the throw and the tray that's on the ottoman, and it's really those little bits that kind of make the space in the end. So it's the finishing touches, like you've said, and whether that's additional storage like baskets, or greenery, and just finishing bits like that.
And I think it ties back into the feeling. You had a great analogy that you told me one time about relating it to clothing.
Yes, exactly.
And so if you want to think about the finishing, you may be someone that really knows how to pick out furniture and dress your space, but it's really taking it to the next level. And Sam one time, and in a way I understand it, is you put on clothes and you're dressed for the day, you're wearing your clothes, but are you styling your clothes? And that's something I talk a lot about in my channel.
It's the jewelry, it's the sunglasses, it's the handbag, it's the belt.
How can we really enhance the overall
elevate the look?
And how can we really enhance and elevate the space? So I think if you're looking at your space and you feel like it's missing something, I think my advice would be to invest in hiring an interior designer to help with the finishing touches of that space to bring it home. So what would you say you would recommend investing in when it comes to interior designer? Or maybe what's a space that you see that people like to get done a lot?
Honestly, it's very similar to what you guys did. I think it's those areas that most people are seeing, and possibly that you and your family are spending the most time in, and that's sort of the main living area. So living, kitchen, dining areas, those are typically what people will sort of, if we're doing a whole house, that's what they'll want to prioritize usually.
That was our thought process. We wanted to do
sense.
the main floor, but it was so funny because we did the main floor and then we'd walk upstairs and it would feel so sad because the main floor was so wonderful. And then talking about, where you're living and where you're spending a lot of your time, my husband and I decided to do our master, which is part of the space that you're seeing here today. And like Sam just knocked it out of the park. And it really feels like our own sanctuary. And it's a place where we are every day, and we just find ourselves hanging out here so much more now that you've produced this space that is so lovely and again has that feeling that we're looking for, and I feel really reflects our personalities and things that we enjoy. Sam even asked for pictures of our travels to incorporate into the room, and something as unique as this little nook. I think you did such an excellent job, the colors and everything. So I think going first with the most lived in spaces, whether it's important to the client or because they host a lot and people are going to see it the most, I think is another great piece of advice. So we've covered so much today.
We have.
Between what does an interior designer do, how to find the right one, the importance of collaboration with the interior designer, budget, and really understanding, maybe you have a smaller budget, you can just focus on one space and doing the finishing touches on that space, or really you've saved up and you want to flip a whole room or a whole section of the house, doing that. And then obviously the return on investment that you get in hiring an interior designer. I think that was the best thing and the best decision we've made. Obviously I've made a dear friend out of it, but that hiring you we never regret it. And we love coming into our house, and it just feels like us. So now that everyone has seen, your work, Sam, before we leave for the day and wrap up, where can people find you?
I have an Instagram page, Pure House Interiors. Check it out. We've also got a website, and I think on both of those, my email and phone number should be on there, or if you can just DM me. But yeah, that's probably the best way to get in touch.
And can someone reach out to you via email? And I know most of your clients, if not all, are local. Are you open to maybe recruiting? Would it be a good idea for a client to work with an interior designer that is out of state?
Yeah, I think it's definitely doable. I mean, I think it depends on the project, but we can definitely discuss out of state projects. If you're starting a new build, a new construction project, or a major remodel, unless you want to fly me out so that I can be there on site, maybe not the right fit, if I'm being honest. But for furnishings projects, I think there can definitely be a way to sort of work that out.
Okay, well, please do not hesitate to reach out to Sam. I'm going to put all her information in the description below. So
you.
make sure you check it out. Thank you so much for coming today.
You're
We
welcome.
hope
Thank
you
you for having
guys
me.
learned so much. And if anything, were educated on how the process of working with an interior designer is and if it's the right one for you. So, and if it is, please reach out to Sam. And thank you all so much. And we'll see you next week. Well, I'll see you next week. Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.